Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Network Mind Out webinar today. Just before we start, I'd just like to double check that our participants can actually hear us and see us. So if you're able to see and hear us, can you just type a little message in the text box on the lower left-hand side of your screen to let us know that our sound and audio is all okay? Hopefully. Yes, excellent. Thank you, Warren. I really appreciate that. That's awesome. That's great that you can see and hear us. So my name is Sally Morris. I'm the National Mind Out Project Coordinator with the National LGBTI Health Alliance. And every month we facilitate these online webinars to provide access to professional development around LGBTI mental health. Before we start our webinars, we like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land on which we're meeting here today, and knowing that with our webinars, there's people in locations all across Australia. So just to acknowledge the land on which we're here today. And we also would like to acknowledge our LGBTI elders who have often paved the way for us to be able to do the work that we're doing in the LGBTI community. So today we have two presenters. We have Owen O'Neill and Stephanie Hunt, who are from the Way Ahead Mental Health Association of New South Wales. And Owen and Stephanie are going to be talking about the anxiety disorder support group that they facilitate for LGBTI people in Sydney. And so Stephanie has always had a keen interest in stigma that surrounds mental health and is passionate to break it down. She's finished her studies in psychology and is looking to complete her master's over the next few years and wants to work in health promotion and policy to increase accessibility of mental health services and support. Stephanie is a part of our LGBTIQ community and understands and seen the overwhelming effect that mental health issues has had in our community. Stephanie has been facilitating the Way Ahead Anxiety Support Group for almost a year and is really grateful for this group. And we also have Owen here with us, and Owen is very passionate around supporting the wellbeing of members of the LGBTIQ community, and he first became a volunteer of the Queensland AIDS Council in the mid-90s. I'm from Brisbane, Owen, so I've also worked at QUAC over the years, and has continued to volunteer with a number of community organisations in different roles since. After recovering from issues with his own mental health, he's developed a new passion for helping others with similar experience. And to further develop his skills in the area, he's currently starting to become a psychologist and also the co-facilitator of the anxiety disorder support group. He's able to combine his two passions together for supporting our community for those with mental health issues. So thank you so much, Stephanie and Owen. I think you're going to be a wealth of knowledge for us here today. So I'm going to hand over to you. Just for our participants who are watching and listening, you can type questions for Owen and Stephanie to respond to throughout the webinar or at the end. Just type the message in the chat box on the lower left-hand side of your screen and they'll see that pop up. So please just post your questions there and I'll hand over. So thank you, Owen and Stephanie.
Thanks, Sally. Hi, everyone. So I'd also like to acknowledge the custodians of this land, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, on which we're presenting this from, and acknowledge their elders past and present. I acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contribution they make to the life of this city and this region. Thanks for tuning in. As Sally said, my name's Owen, this is Stephanie, and we co-facilitate an LGBTI anxiety disorder support group. We meet on the first Saturday of every month at ACON, so the AIDS Council of New South Wales office in Elizabeth Street, Surrey Hills, here in Sydney. And today we'd first like to talk a little bit about Way Ahead and who and what they are, and then we'll talk about our support group specifically and what it is that we do. Okay, so Way Ahead is a non-government organisation, plays a vital role in the development of mental health initiatives, which increase community awareness and knowledge of mental health issues. Way Ahead provides facts and information to the community through fact sheets, telephone support lines, and also through the Way Ahead directory, which is a comprehensive online resource of all mental health services in New South Wales. Way Ahead is involved in mental health promotion, including the Mental Health Month and promotion of employee health and wellbeing in the workplace. We have an anxiety program in which we run public forums on anxiety disorders support groups here in New South Wales, and we have a small steps program where we go into schools and we talk to parents and teachers about anxiety disorders in children.
So Way Ahead has been running support groups for 20 years, and we currently have over 30 support groups in New South Wales. You can access a full list of these support groups through our website, which is www.understandinganxiety.org.au. The groups are free to attend and they're open, so new people can join at any time. We meet in a friendly environment where members can offer each other support and share experiences if they feel comfortable to do so. This enables our members to increase their personal awareness of their disorder. The groups go for about 2 hours, and as well as sharing and support, we also provide education and information about anxiety disorders to not only those with the disorder, but also to their friends and family. The groups are designed to complement treatment, not replace it. And participants who attend one or more support groups report a reduction in their level of anxiety. And as you can see from this graph that's on the screen at the moment, group participants spend increased amounts of time experiencing mild anxiety as opposed to incapacitating anxiety.
So just on that point, I think it's important to talk about what we mean when we say recovery from an anxiety disorder. So anxiety is in and of itself a perfectly normal feeling that everyone gets. Its purpose is to help us avoid danger and solve problems, such as crossing a busy road safely or preparing for a test or meeting a work deadline. For most of us, the anxiety subsides when a stressful situation is over. For people with an anxiety disorder, however, the feelings don't subside, they persist, and they can occur without any reason or cause. When this happens frequently and intensely, it can impact on well-being, stop us from doing the things we want or need to do, and can cause distress. The anxiety can be related to specific things, such as the fear of spider. It could be a fear of being judged negatively, like social phobia. It could be a panicking about not being able to escape places like crowds or public transport. So people with panic disorder experience that. Could be a fear that something bad will happen if we don't do certain things. So people with OCD who have to do repetitive actions to reduce their anxiety, or just a general feeling that something bad is going to happen. And it could be, focusing on just the tiniest little thing that we worry about obsessively. So all of these can be treated with therapy, medication, and/or lifestyle changes. However, it's important to note anxiety disorders don't go away. When we talk about recovery from an anxiety disorder, what we're talking about is people learning how to live with and manage their anxiety.
So this group came about because Rachel Flint, who is the support group coordinator here at Way Ahead, attended an LGBTI mental health training session at Way Ahead, which was presented by Mind Out. She already knew that people from the LGBTI community were underrepresented in our support groups, and she thought that we needed to reach out to them, but she was startled at the statistics surrounding mental health issues in the LGBTI community. LGBT people are twice as likely to have an anxiety as non-LGBT people. According to Beyond Blue in 2011, they found that 31% of people who identify as homosexual or bisexual have anxiety disorders, which is compared to just 14% of the general population. And this goes up to 45% for people of both genders.
So according to La Trobe University's Private Lives 2 report, which came out in 2015, which is a report into the mental health and wellbeing of LGBTI Australians, not only do LGBTI people have higher rates of anxiety disorders than the general population, they've also been shown to have lower resilience. and obviously resilience and anxiety are inversely related to each other. So as people get older, for most groups in our community, the rates of psychological distress decrease and the levels of resilience increase. But there are some groups in our community for whom this doesn't change. For example, bisexual females, psychological distress remains high across all age ranges and resilience remains low. And for trans males, psychological distress remains high across all age groups. LGBTI people in Australia are also at increased risk of suicide compared to non-LGBTI people, with same-sex attracted people being up to 14 times more likely than non-same-sex attracted people to attempt suicide, and same-sex attracted young people being up to 6 times more likely than non-same-sex attracted young people to attempt suicide. So what that means, what that looks like, is that up to 42% of same-sex attracted young people compared to just 7% of non-same-sex attracted young people attempt suicide. LGBTI people have the highest rates of suicidality in Australia.
If we then factor in that people with an anxiety disorder are 10 times more likely to commit suicide than people without a disorder, then things can start to look pretty grim for LGBTI people who also have an anxiety disorder. However, there is some good news, and that is that support groups have been shown to be a preventative factor against suicide. Young LGBTI people who are able to access support groups report lower levels of suicidality than those who can't, and social support is also associated with a decrease in suicidality. People who experience other adults caring about them also report lower levels of suicidality.
Okay, so with this in mind, Rachel set out to start an LGBTI-specific anxiety support group here in Sydney. So we were fortunate enough to successfully secure a grant from the Aurora group. They are a group that raise money to help organisations who work with LGBTI people across the state, actually. And so they gave us a grant from their small grants section to engage and reach out with members of the community. After we received their grant, ACON came on board and they provided a room for us to hold the support group in. Both of them have been really supportive of the group and we're really grateful to them for that support. After we'd secured a room and the money to get this going, the next step was to start promoting the group. And we still had some Aurora group funding, and with that we're able to create some great promotional material for the group. Our graphic designer came up with this design, which is on the screen now, which was printed as a postcard and on posters. The creation incorporates a group of diverse people overlaid by the rainbow flag. This promotional material differed from the material which had been produced for other support groups, with the designer during his creative process making an effort to avoid producing a flyer which was too conservative. We've received great feedback about the promotional material, and so this has now changed the way we'll be promoting our other support groups in the future. We're also now looking at setting up interviews with some community online and print magazine and news outlets, such as samesame.com and Lesbians on the Loose, that kind of community papers, so that we can get the word out about what it is that we do and what we have to offer to members of our community.
So Way Ahead support groups all follow generally the same structure. People who are interested in leading one of the groups undergo facilitator training, which is provided by Way Ahead. We're taught about the main anxiety disorders, how they present, how they differ from each other, and what the most effective current treatments are. We're also taught about the structure of the groups and what our own role is in them. The main purpose of these groups is to provide support for people with anxiety disorders as well as their friends and families. It can be useful for friends and families.
Entry and exit chimes are off.
So they can get a deeper understanding of their loved one's disorder, but also so they can have a place to share their experiences of living with and supporting someone with an anxiety disorder. That can be a really tough role to have to play, and they also really need support as well. For this reason, we make sure they know they're welcome to attend and be a part of the group, even if their loved one doesn't want to come. We provide a comfortable setting for all members to share their feelings and needs and to support each other. And it's also a place where they can have fun and enjoy each other's company. Another benefit of the group is to give people who might be struggling a vision of what the future might hold with the presence of coping members.
Okay, so we have a creed or group agreement that goes across all of our groups, and that kind of outlines how we want the group to run. So the most important thing that we do is we listen to and support each other. We share our stories and explore options, but we don't give advice, prescribe or diagnose people. There's no judgment in our space, and people are free to participate in discussions as much or as little as they choose. Everyone is given equal talking time if they want it, and everyone gets everyone else's attention while they're talking. Everything that happens in the group is completely confidential within legal 40 minutes. So this structure was chosen to make the group as comfortable as possible for members. We don't want to be doing anything that is going to increase their anxiety. For example, some people find it hard to talk in group situations, so we make sure they know they don't have to if they don't want to. Other people want to talk, but their anxiety prevents them from speaking up, so we make sure that they are given the opportunity. And, you know, other people tend to just talk a lot when they're anxious, so we make sure that they leave room for other people to share their experiences as well.
Within our group, we have a really diverse range of members. So they range in age from teenagers through to late middle age, and we have members of very diverse genders and sexualities as well. We have members who live walking distance from the venue in Surrey Hills, and we also have some who come as far away as from the far south coast and actually from the upper Blue Mountains as well. Considering the issues that long distance travel, especially by public transport, which is how most of our members get to our group, that can cause serious anxiety for people who actually already have anxiety. And I think that the geographical diversity of our members really shows how important this group is to them. Many of them have groups that are closer to them geographically, but they still choose to come to ours.
Some of our members have anxiety disorders and they just happen to be LGBTI, but for others the anxiety is directly linked to their sexuality and or gender. It could be related to coming out, connecting to the community, performing masculinity or femininity, or substance abuse, or a range of other issues. A number of our members have commented on the fact that when they go to other groups, they can never be sure how their gender or sexuality is going to be accepted, and this can increase their anxiety in those groups, leading them to share less than they might like to, or in some cases keeping them away entirely. So having a group that's specifically for LGBTI people, it just removes that extra layer of anxiety for them and creates a space that feels safe for them. One of the ways that we help create this feeling of safety is we'll start meeting by introducing ourselves, and we share our pronouns and our sexuality if we're comfortable doing so. So this lets people know that we're not, first of all, going to make any assumptions about them, their sexuality or their gender, and that we recognise that for some people in some spaces, these things can be very hard to share, but we're completely open to all genders and sexualities and intersex variations.
So most of the other groups run by Way Ahead are a little bit more structured than ours. We tend to let conversations happen naturally, and we only really guide things if they get too far off track or if we need to make sure that everyone is sharing the space fairly. As mentioned earlier, support groups are a protective factor against suicide, and that's what we provide with our group. But social support is also a protective factor, so we let our space be a social space as well. For many of our members, their anxiety keeps them quite isolated generally, but it also keeps them isolated from other LGBTI people in particular. The groups are designed to give people a space to talk about their anxiety and also to share experiences around that. But due to the intersectionality of their anxiety disorder and their sexuality, gender and or intersex variation, we also widen that a bit to allow them to interact socially with other members of their community. Some of the ways we've done this are, for example, when the room wasn't available over New Year, we had a group picnic in Prince Alfred Park instead. Many of our members want to go to events such as Fair Day, which is happening next Sunday, but they find it too daunting. And so O and I are both going to be there on Sunday, and we've made ourselves available for anyone who wants to come and need some support, or who needs just someone to chat to, or just someone to chill out with for a while they get their bearings around the space. We're also contactable outside of group meeting times, and we've met up for one-on-one chats with some of our members, which can be easier for them and makes them feel more comfortable when they then come to an actual group meeting once a month. I think the main thing for us is that our members get to build their strengths within their community, and that really is the focus of our group.
Okay, so just up on the screen now, this is kind of a standard quote that you hear from members of not just our group but all of the support groups. I found people who understood exactly what I was going through, and just the relief that being around other people going through what they're going through is absolutely enormous. And just at our last meeting, we had a member who has quite visible symptoms of his anxiety that he tries to keep quite hidden in public, which then causes more anxiety about whether they're being seen and so on. And it's kind of like a really vicious cycle for him. And he, during the group, was able to say, for the first time in my life, I'm happy. I don't feel I have to hide my hands. You know, just to hear someone to be able to walk into that space and for the first time in their life, to just be able to be really, really valuable experience for him, and really, really great for us to hear that that's, you know, this is what we're trying to provide and this is what's actually happening.
I also just wanted to add with one of our other members that we've had she hasn't been there for a few months. She's younger, she's about 19, and she's struggling to come to terms with her sexuality or her gender. She's not quite sure what it is, and that in itself is causing her anxiety. And every time she comes, she meets people of different genders or different sexualities, and she can just bounce ideas off people and actually just have a sounding board without the fear that we're going to think that she's odd or that she doesn't know who she is, which I think is her main anxiety. And it's just so nice to know that she can come to these groups and just feel so comfortable and say whatever she's thinking and not be worried about how it's going to be responded to. So it's a really, really valuable group.
Okay, so that's all we've got for you today. So thank you so much for your time. I guess now if anyone has any questions, we'd love to read them, and we'll do our best to respond. Oh yeah, I should have said, the bottom left-hand corner is where you can type any questions you might have, bottom left-hand corner of your screen.
And they can be about anything, about what we've said today, or if you think we've missed something, or if there's something else that you're interested in, or about us, or about the members, or really, yeah, there's no limit in what you can ask us. That's a really good question. The question is, roughly how many people do you have come along? And I'd say it's probably usually between 3 and 5 that we have each month. We have a couple of regulars that come at least every 2 months, but then every month we do have new people coming from different areas. Would you say that?
Yeah, and you know, it's kind of hard with people with anxiety disorders to get them to come every month. You know, our last meeting we had a person who hasn't been for about 6 months, but every month he tries to come, but every month it just kind of gets a bit too much. And then this past month, you know, he was able to come, which is great. And so, you know, like the numbers vary, and it can be different people each time, or a few regulars, but it's hard to kind of form a group that's going to be the same each and every time for that reason.
Oh, long question. Okay, I will read. This is from Warren from Townsville. Peer support can provide great wraparound support. What about people who may need one-on-one? Is the group primarily support or therapy, or both? And do you prefer to clearly demarcate between therapy and support? Did I say that right?
Yeah. So we don't provide therapy in the support group at all. It is absolutely an extra support. It's there to complement the therapy they might be having. Some people aren't getting therapy, and this is the only kind of support they get. But we're really, really clear that our role is not to provide therapy, it is to provide a space where they can come and talk about what's going on for them with other people who are going through similar things, and they can share their support. So they might, talk about therapy that has been really beneficial for them, and so someone else who might not have heard of that therapy can go, oh, I might look into that. So we don't provide that. It's a place where they can share things that have worked for themselves with each other and take that on board or not.
Also, just to respond to the part of the question about some of them need one-on-one, we do have some people that request, well, not request, but we chat to them throughout, or they might come up to us afterwards and then want to meet up. So we might either stay back, like last week, we just sat for about another hour talking with one of our members who is quite a regular lady, but also sometimes we'll meet up with her earlier or other members early if they do just want to get to know us first before they're put in such an anxiety-inducing situation, which it really can be for some of the ones that have that do have social anxiety.
Yeah, but those one-on-one meetups are just support things.
Yeah.
We don't provide therapy. That is, if therapy is what they need, that is up to them to find someone that's right for them.
Yeah, it's just something that we do so that they can then feel more comfortable coming to the group. And yes, Warren, you're right. It's information sharing, and it's a very safe space for them to share information. Next question is from Lisa. How do people find out about the group, and how do you measure change? I think there's quite an even split between people who've just seen the rainbow poster that you saw earlier. They've seen that around and it's caught their attention, but also there are quite a few people that hear about us from other organisations. So they're within the LGBTI support community. There are a whole range of different organisations. There's PFLAG, there's 2010, there's a whole range of different organisations, and we all kind of know about each other so that we can promote each other to people that we think it might be relevant for. So we promoted 2010 to a few of our younger members who just don't have any exposure to LGBT people and feel like they can't talk about it with their friends and family quite yet. But I think quite a few of them found out about us from PFLAG when they went to get support materials for their friends and family who were struggling as well. So there's a range.
Yeah, and we've had people who've been referred by health professionals,
yeah.
and who the health professional has seen or had contact with people who've been to one of our groups and has passed on that information. So yeah, there's advertising and there's word of mouth and there's professional referrals as well.
Yeah. So why they might not recommend it to a friend because they don't then want their safe space to be in, or an acquaintance, for example, they might actually just hear about our LGBT specific one when they're at another support group or at another Way Ahead event and stuff. Any other questions? Okay. Do you find that people across the LGBTI community engage with each other versus a group for different parts of the LGBTI population? That's a great question.
Yeah. I think the answer is yes and no, I think, to this question. And I think it also is geography specific. My experience, for example, living in Brisbane 20 years ago, there's a very, very small LGBTI community. So, gay leather men would hang out with lesbian women and trans women all in the same space. Here in Sydney, where there's a much bigger kind of population of LGBTI people, I feel like there's less interaction between the different groups. I think we're the poorer for it, to be honest. As far as from a health perspective, the community organisations, certainly that I'm a part of, there is much more of that interaction between groups. But then again, it's different for different parts. We, for example, in our support group, we provide a space for anyone who falls anywhere on any of those letters in the alphabet soup to come along and be part of our group. But I know, for example, in Victoria, they have a transgender and gender diverse specific support group for people with anxiety disorders, and they have a gay men's anxiety support group. So that's provided by ARC, which is Anxiety Recovery Centre in Victoria. So I think, it depends on where you are. It depends on the size of really the population. That's my experience anyway.
I don't think it has hindered our support group at all. I actually think they quite enjoy interacting with people who've had different experiences, because even though they might identify with a completely different sexuality or different gender, they actually have a lot of common ground, and especially when, again, with the intersection of anxiety and sexuality and gender, there are always these underlying concepts that they all understand and that they all have had experience with. So I think that they really do bond, and they can offer each other advice and support regardless of the fact that they might not be of the same gender or sexuality. So our next question is from Warren again. If we wanted to set up a group where we can get access to resources, or where can we get access to resources, particularly in regional areas like Townsville in North Queensland? So I am going to refer you to the wonderful Rachel Flint, who is the support groups coordinator here at Way Ahead. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type her email address into the chat area so that you'll be able to see it, and you can note that down and get in contact with her, because we definitely would love to encourage setting up more of these sorts of groups, because as we were saying, location, we've got people, I know Townsville is very far away, but we've got people travelling an hour and a half on the train just to get there because they find it so valuable. So
yeah, and I guess Way Ahead is funded to work in New South Wales, and so that kind of is our focus. Having said that, we're absolutely committed to sharing any and all resources with anyone who wants to do this work where they are. A lot of our support groups at the moment are kind of in the Greater Sydney area, but just recently I know that there was some interest in starting one in Port Macquarie, and further down the south coast as well we've had some interest, and so our goal is to reach as many people as possible.
Yeah. So we may not be able to help with things like finding you a space, but you know your area a lot better anyway. Okay. Another question?
Okay, I'm not sure if there's any other questions, but some great conversation there at the end. So if anyone else wanted to still pose a question, we've got a few moments still. Please feel free to do that. But Stephanie has just posted Rachel's contact details down the bottom there. And actually Way Ahead is what we call one of our champion organisations. They're part of the Mind Out project, and we've been working with them closely over the last couple of years to increase their ability to be inclusive and accessible to LGBTI populations. With this group being one of the physical, tangible outcomes of that work that we've been doing. So it's been really great to be working with Way Ahead over the last period of time, and to see them actually progress to create this group. And it's actually been really great to hear both Owen and Stephanie talk about the group actually, about how it's working and the benefits to the community in Sydney. So it doesn't look like there's any more questions that have come through. So thank you everyone for joining us today. This webinar has been recorded and we'll be posting it up on the Alliance webpage in the next few days. So please feel free to rewatch it or share it with other people in your networks. So thank you very much, and we'll look forward to seeing you next month. Next month we will have Delaney Skerritt talking about some research he has conducted on LGBT people around suicidality, which so it'll be really interesting to listen to that. So it'd be great to have everyone log back on next month and see you there. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Ellen. Bye, everyone.
Bye.